I became a tattoo artist when I got my first tattoo. I went into a tattoo shop at the time. I lived in Hawaii, and I turned 21, so I decided I was going to get a tattoo, and I went in and got it. And by the time the guy was done and I paid for it, I realized I could have done a better job myself, left-handed in a mirror, and paid way less money.
My fiance Brian Spitz, he kind of got me into the tattoo business, and that's where I started. So whenever we first came about opening our own studio, it was because we were out of a job because of a flood that happened in Oklahoma, in Ponca City. So we kind of had to open our own shop or just be without work. So we just kind of put all of our eggs in one basket and opened our shop that way.
I mean, ultimately, when I opened this shop, it was for me, but it wasn't just for me. A lot of this was built around Sophia.
Starting up a business was extremely stressful, especially working with the health department. You had to find a place, and it had to be in correlation with all of the rules and regulations of the state of Oklahoma for tattooing. So that part was extremely difficult. You have to find a place that meets all of the guidelines. There's even rules for the lighting. You have to have all of these different regulations met in order to even pass the inspection, which they'll come out and inspect the building once you find a place where you at least believe that you have met all of the regulations. But we went ahead and found a place, and we got that all set up. It did take a couple months to get started up, so we were probably down to like $60 by the time we bought everything that we needed for our shop. You have to get your licenses in order. You have to file for all of those. You don't get them until after the inspection's over with and she says okay, and then they can send it to you. But you have to pass all of your inspections. You have to apply for all of your licenses for each artist. You have to apply for a license to actually own the studio. So there's quite a few licenses involved. And then you have to pass your CPR, bloodborne pathogens, and first aid.
When I first started my journey of looking for a tattoo shop to work in, I basically just walked into the first tattoo shop I found online or in a phone book. And this was in the Pensacola, Florida area. So there's like the Strip, is what they call it. And on the Strip, there's all the tattoo shops are right next to each other. So there was probably 10 in a small area that I went to the first day and got laughed at multiple times, told hell no. I didn't have a proper portfolio. You have to have an impressive art skill because most tattoo artists are cocky and think that they're the best. So every artist has that chip on the shoulder of it's us against every other artist in the world. So to give somebody this job that you've already gotten, you have to be as good or better than them on paper before you're taken seriously. And I probably walked into 50 tattoo shops before I got told yes. So whenever I started my own tattoo shop, the differences would be being an artist versus being an owner. I'd never been an owner before. I always worked for someone else. So it was a lot different to just show up to work, do what you're supposed to do, and go home. I didn't have to worry about needles or inventory or electric bills or paying the rent or licensing fee. And none of that. You really don't have to worry about that unless you own the shop. So that was the main transition, was becoming a business owner instead of depending on somebody else's business. You had to depend on yourself to make your business. The tattoo shops that I worked in the past were already established shops. They had names. They'd been around for a decade or longer. One shop I worked in was in for 35 years before I got there, so it wasn't like I had to work hard to get people to come in the door. Also, when we opened our first tattoo shop, it wasn't on a main street. It was upstairs, like in an office area, a small office area. So from the street, you would never get a walk-in client. So that was one thing that was different. Was I went from a walk-in store, open shop that was always open to the public eye to we were basically hidden. You had to find us or know who we were, and that was a little slower in the beginning.
Very hard as a female artist because not a lot of people are going to respect you as much as a male, unfortunately. And then getting into the industry itself as a female is a little bit harder because it is male dominant. So to be able to even get a job, there is a lot of things that you have to overcome, and you have to hope that you find somebody that's going to allow you to even have a chance in the industry. So luckily, a lot of the clientele that come in to get tattooed are women. So a lot of women feel more comfortable with a female artist, especially if they are getting like certain tattoos in certain areas. It's much easier for them to come in and get a tattoo by a woman. And we typically also have like a lighter hand in the industry as well. My advice for female artists would probably be make sure that you find someone to apprentice you that you are comfortable with, that does not make you feel uncomfortable. Make sure that it's a good environment for you to be in at all times. Being comfortable where you work is definitely 100% needed in the environment.
You kind of read the person at the same time as you want to establish that they're going to be an asset to your company. You want someone that has as good as strong a value, like art values as you do, but you also want people to have different strengths in different areas than the other artists that are in the building, because it's rare that one artist can do everything. Definitely the very first thing is character. If you can't, when you're in this business, you're not like employees next to each other. It's more of a family industry. So if you can't deal with that person every single day, or even know that like, okay, that person's going to annoy me some days, but I can put up with it, you're not going to be able to coexist. So first off, character is everything, personality. You got to at least know that you're going to click with that person because they're looking for you as a mentor. So you just have to be able to have that. Trust. It was a big deal because you're trusting your business with that person forever, and they can easily walk out and take half your business or a quarter, and open their own shop at any time instead of working with you as a whole to create, an entity. So that's one thing you gotta. Loyalty is big in this industry, and it's also not there. So I opened my first tattoo shop. I do believe it was like 2017 or 2018. When I had the vision for the shop, I've worked in 3 or 4 other shops prior to this. So when I opened my shop, I didn't want it to look like a tattoo shop. I didn't want you to come in and see just like flash that you could pick up off the wall or something that somebody else had. So the tattoo shop looked like a giant arcade or a toy store more than anything else. It didn't have anything tattoo related in it. I also wanted people to be comfortable, so I changed the aspect of like you sitting in the same room next to somebody else getting tattooed. We have a television, different things like that other tattoo shops don't offer.
So we actually started the business just about a year before the pandemic hit. So we didn't have a lot of time to start our business up, but it was going really well in the beginning. We had a lot of support, a lot of people coming in for tattoos. It was really going well.
Before the COVID pandemic, it seemed like there was no end to business. I tattooed 12 hours a day, 12 days a week. I turned people down. I was booked out 6 months at a time at some points. But yeah, before the pandemic, there was no end to money. It just seemed like you could do whatever you wanted to do. That was easy because honestly, they shut everybody down for not being essential. And after about 38 days, I said kiss my ass and went back to work and just kept the door shut. I had one customer come in at a time, following because nobody wanted to get COVID.
So during the pandemic, we lost a lot of money due to being closed for the 2 months. So it was extremely hard to keep this place afloat. We did have a little bit of a cushion that we would prepay our rents to make for sure that we were going to make it through these 2 months without any pay. So we kept afloat on that. We just went ahead and paid all the bills up and hoped for the best. So when we were allowed to open after the 2-month closure, we kind of bought face masks. We made sure to wash our hands a little extra. We kept lots of hand sanitizer all over the shop. We tried to only limit how many people were even in the building, so that way we didn't have a lot of exposure to other people. We kept the doors locked and only allowed like one person to come in for their tattoo appointment at a time. So after the pandemic ended, I had a list of people that I had on my schedule during the whole blackout area where we were allowed to tattoo. So I went ahead and reached out to each one of those individual people to see if they wanted to get back on the book, and kind of like went in order on that. And then I also made a big Facebook post and tagged a bunch of people, so that way they knew that we were getting ready to reopen, that we were finally allowed to reopen. So that way if they wanted to get in, that, you know, we could do that. And then we also did some like little flash sales to get things kind of rolling back in our direction.
Sure. You have maybe 5% of them that are really loyal. You know, maybe 20, let's say 20. We'll say 20. 20% of your customers are loyal and they'll wait for you no matter what. The rest of them will go anywhere they can get it for cheaper to begin with, or they can get in sooner. So when that all came to signing everybody back up, I didn't stress that at all. Either you were going to get back on my books or you weren't.
So during COVID-19, we actually moved down to a bigger location and we started our business, and we were going pretty well. We got nominated Business of the Year that year, but then COVID did hit, unfortunately, and the state told us we had to close down because we were not marked as one of those people who were essential. So we had to close down, and that was very hard on us because we weren't making any money being closed down, and a lot of small businesses were suffering because of the close on all of the unessential businesses. So that year was definitely not a fun year. After the 2 months, you know, kind of let go, we did not have as much business because everybody was very broke, because a lot of people lost a lot of money, lost their jobs.
A lot harder after the pandemic to be a business owner or an entrepreneur in any way, because the money's just not there. People don't spend. They're still used to staying in their house and buying everything online. And it's just something that we've learned to cope with. I've ended up opening other businesses as side income because of that, just to be able to make ends meet most of the time.
In the beginning, when we started the shop, it was strictly just tattoos. We've definitely opened up to retail. We've expanded. We've even got a shop next door now, so we've got lots of room. We've got more artists. We are up to 3 artists and an apprentice. When we started out with just one, being Brian, that was our only artist, and now we've got Jacob and Peyton as our apprentice, and myself.
Aside from being a tattoo artist, the tattoo business for me, after I got a couple of artists that were working along with me, gave me a little more freedom with my time and income to do things a little, you know, more things on the side that I wanted to do. I can't tattoo forever. None of us can. There's a timeline on tattoo artists. You're only good at your job for so long till your body's not good at it. So your eyes get worse, your hands get worse, you get old, and there is no retirement in this business. You make your own retirement. I don't get a 401k. I don't get Social Security. I've opened multiple businesses since then. This will be my 3rd or 4th business that I've owned in the last 5 years. One did not succeed, which really was more due to the community's lack of support for that business and the landlords that we were involved with made it almost impossible to stay in the building. It was just easier to fold that one under so we didn't lose any more money on it. Problem with living in a small town is that things come and go very fastly in a small business world in a small town because they're not used to it. People who live here for their entire lives are used to the same things their entire lives. They don't really do anything new. And if they do, it gives them a reason to get out of small town, like to go out to a bigger town or somewhere else and eat different restaurants and see different things, and you see the same 5 streets that you see every day. I did have I have a major collecting issue. So eventually I opened a business with my own personal collections. I have like a vintage antique store and a toy mall. And my original dream before becoming an artist was to be a musician. And my first job was working in a music store in my hometown. During the pandemic, for whatever reason, I thought it was wise to go ahead and wing it and open a guitar store. And when I did, we opened it with 12 guitars and 60 records that half of them weren't even mine, and a handful of things. I mean, a tape deck, maybe. It was very little, and a tiny little office room in an old bank. And then it just kind of exploded from there. And 2 years later, the music store is bigger than one that you'd see in the city. But that's the hit and miss of a small town. That business got supported by the town a lot. And a lot of people came in and traded and helped build that business and donated things to us to help. Because we, musicians, really fell in the musician circle. But a business person, at first, that's all you care about is what other people think of you. What are other people going to think about? What is other people's opinions? Because they're your income. The point where you stop caring about that and more about how you provide your business the way you want to provide it, whether they come in the doors or not, it doesn't change whether they come in the door or not. So just do what you want to do the way you want to do it. That way you enjoy your job instead of trying to make other people happy, because that's impossible. Being an entrepreneur is not easy, and usually you cannot just depend on one source of income. So most of us all end up having multiple sources. It's even like real estate. Yeah, you can buy some houses and rent those houses out to people, but eventually you can't just survive on whatever you're getting out of that. You have to branch into something else and branch into something else to keep it going. Because if your one business slows down, what do? Close? Go back to another one? Or depend on one, robbing Peter to pay Paul type thing, which is what we do. So our businesses bounce off of each other, and the tattoo shop supported opening all of them initially. And now that it's just like every other business, it takes some years to get something to self-sustain itself. But once the ball's rolling and you keep going, as long as you don't stop, it doesn't stop. Ultimately, we got Jacob in the mix to help out, and Peyton and other people, you got working for you. The goal is to not have to work as much. So that's why you have those other businesses as well. I do love tattooing, but if I could work in a music store all day long and make the same amount of money, I would. If I could just sit in the toy store all day and do what those people who have toy stores do, or antique malls, different things like that, that's all I would do. So my end game is that, and tattoo what I want when I want to. That way I can enjoy the art aspect of it.
We are definitely trying to just keep expanding and keep up the good work.